So, this is different than this, right? This has been,
Should be the date.
Oh yeah, this is way different.
yeah, way different, okay.
Yeah, there's like 4 of them now. Every time you come to something, you get a new one.
Alright, so Article 7, so Article 8, capital expenses on page 7. Capital Planning Committee met, they revised this article. Right now, there's an article about $95,000. None of it is going to impact the tax rate. There'll be a transfer of $26,000 outside, and that'll come from existing money. And then the Hadley Media would like to access their capital funds within their own enterprise fund, so they just need a authorization from town for that purpose. So the other two are projects. One was painting town hall is going to be deferred, and the other one was a possible land purchase, and that deal apparently fell apart, and so they're not going to go forward.
So that's these two?
That was in the earlier draft, you would have seen
Oh.
the X's of that. So that's the capital article for the Springtown meeting. Fall town meeting, there'll be a lot of capital requests. We usually try to do operational spring, capital, and fall.
And none of this is coming out of taxpayer money because you
None
just.
of it, not a penny.
Okay.
But I understand we're waiting for the itemized list from Hadley Media.
Yes, correct, and that, which I have not received yet, so I'll remind them that they owe us that list. The itemized list would be for the 69, 915. What are you getting for that?
So do we wanna do something now, or do we, or
Do you wanna wait for
do we wanna
that?
wait for that?
Yeah, I think we should wait. Capital Planning Committee's waiting for the itemized list, and then I think once they have it, the assumptions will move forward on it pretty quickly, but
Okay,
you'd have that first.
Well, so let's wait.
So you've done number 9.
will we have another, will we be meeting again before you post?
Right, so I'm posting on Thursday the 13th, that theoretically.
That's next week.
That's next week.
So no, we aren't.
The select board are meeting on the 12th, so you can post, you're usually in attendance, you can post your meeting for the same time and place.
Well, I won't be here on that day, but the others can be here
Yeah,
because I have to go to Rochester.
nice town.
Okay. Okay,
What's your pleasure?
is there anybody else that we'll miss? Because
I should be there.
if, will you be able to attend?
No, I will not be able to be here on Thursday.
On
That's
the
on a
12th.
Thursday, but is it a Thursday?
It would be
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday. I can come on a Wednesday. I think I don't have my phone with me, but I'm pretty sure I can come on a Wednesday.
Okay,
Okay,
Well, we
well,
can-
I, because if we don't have a quorum, we can't vote on
right,
Wednesday, so if we know there's at least 3 of us, because we
Right.
don't know about Terry.
Okay.
okay.
It depends on how many things you still have pending. That's one item that you could just do. the
Yeah,
night
but what I
before
found that I
also.
didn't really care for is when we did go to town meeting last time, when we had a ton of empties,
Right,
recommendations.
Right.
Right,
Yeah, that's not
And-
very good form.
Yeah.
and the voters don't like it either.
No.
9 you've done, 10 you've done, 11, skip that for a moment. 12 you have not done, this is the senior tax workout.
How come we haven't done that? Because that seems like a slam dunk to me.
I think we're feeling our way along on this because this is new and different. I think when you met last time to talk about this, the select board had not heard anything about it. They had not met on this particular issue. Based upon my understanding of how this works, I think both the Finance Committee and the select board are generally supportive of this article.
I have one question.
Sure, yeah.
How is this different than just hiring someone?
Couple of things. First of all, we're not paying any benefits. the other thing is that this is a temporary work program, so we don't have to worry about issues of once you've got a job in municipal government, it's very difficult to not have a job in municipal government. So if somebody's not working out, you just have to wait around for it. If you hire them,
You can't fire them if they don't performing their duties
it's
properly?
difficult to do that. I mean, you have to go through progressive discipline and so forth. So
They would not be eligible for unemployment,
right.
for example.
Okay, and that's a big
It's a big one.
thing that we learned the last time.
Yeah.
So what do you all think? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I think we could vote on this one.
I'm all set to vote. Yeah? You wanna make a motion?
Me?
Yes?
I make a motion that we pass Article 12. Any seconds?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ding.
Opposed?
Okay. Thank you.
Now, you
We-
said we did 11, or we're not doing 11?
Let's go back to let's.
Well, can I ask a question about
Sure.
11? So everything I've heard in select board meeting about a COG, as it's called, is that
Mhm.
this is an organization that sort of resembles a big cloud of smoke and it's going to disappear very soon.
The COG is the outgrowth of an effort back in the 1980s to do away with county government in Massachusetts. Connecticut got rid of their counties. Rhode Island never had counties except as juridical districts. New Hampshire, Vermont has a weak county system. Most of the rest of the country is run on counties.
Oh yeah, I lived in Alabama.
Exactly, all right. And a lot of that had to do with early Native American and Anglo relations. You know, you tended to have these little fortresses in New England, whereas in other places in the country, you had more plantation development. And so a regional approach made sense in New Jersey and for Virginia and stuff like that. Tell me if I'm telling you too much.
Go ahead,
Go
keep
ahead.
going. I have to learn something every day, and this might be right now.
So county government was always weak in Massachusetts because the towns were much more the place where local government really happened. When they got rid of the counties back in the 80s, then the regional issues that the counties were dealing with, mostly having to do with anything that involved a cross-town boundary, suddenly came out of the woodwork and so people said, well, we don't want counties, but we got to have something that addresses regional planning or shared resources or some sort of how do we handle the roads that go from one town to the other if you want to discontinue one or there's some sort of maintenance issue and so forth. So in some counties, not all, these councils of governments arose mostly as a regional planning agency as well as a fee-for-service organization that would deliver services that particularly small towns needed. So aggregate purchasing of DPW supplies, aggregate purchasing of road sweeping, municipal accounting programs, municipal, intermunicipal building inspection programs, public health issues. So these COGs started taking over those roles. Barnstable did it in spades. Franklin Regional Council of Governments was really close behind. Hampshire Council of Government was close behind Franklin. All the rest were kind of all over the place and they collapsed or didn't do their work. So that's why we have COGs, is though that small towns in particular can reach out to a regional agency and get a lot of work done for a fee.
And how much do we pay for that?
Right now we pay a little less than $3,200 per year,
Oh, so hardly anything.
hardly anything.
So that's an important thing to know. And we buy things from these people?
Right, so we used to buy our fuel, we switched that over to the FERCog because they had their act together better.
Wait, FERCog?
Franklin Regional Council of Governments, FERCog, sorry.
But we're not in Franklin County, but that's okay, we can.
That's okay, we can do it. There are other regional organizations we could buy our fuel from, such as the Pioneer Valley Educational Collaborative.
And why wouldn't you just buy your fuel from, I don't know, Cirrus Oil?
You can, but if you're buying per gallon for one town, you're gonna pay a higher price than if 20 towns band together and bid on
A big lot,
a
okay.
big lot. So gasoline, diesel fuel, heating oil, that kind of thing, propane.
So do we have any financial liabilities if we're still a member of the HCOG when they go under, if they go under?
I'm not clear on that part. All right, this is something that we need to understand. Our current commitments to the COG are supplies for the school department, so paper, textbooks, things like the consumable
Consumable
supplies.
stuff, pencils,
Yeah,
pens.
yeah. Our electricity, we have a fixed price electricity for the next year and a half, so through October 19, we have fixed costs for our electricity, so we don't have to pay attention to whether rates go up or down. We get it at the same rate. We have a year-to-year contract for our IT through Paragus.
And that comes through the COG,
That
even
comes
though,
through the COG, so we have a regional IT support.
but they're a very local, very, very local group, right?
Yes,
Has anyone inquired what the rate would be if you just bought it directly?
yes.
Is
So,
it more,
Yes.
considerably?
We pay about $83 per hour for service through Paragus right now. If we did it on our own, and I know that this is the rate they charge us when we work on a grant, it's something where around 110, 120 per hour.
Are there minimum hours through the,
Yes,
Okay, so,
but, so if you did it independently though, there wouldn't be minimum
right,
hours?
right.
Is
So
that
we're
not
looking
effective?
into that particular contract. That's up this June. And there's been some performance issues with Paragus that make me unhappy. We also are in a net metering, net metering credit program through Hampshire Solar, whereby we get a subsidy on our electricity bill to the tune of 21%, which is substantial, and that's a 20-year program that we're in. So
and that comes through the COG, all these things come through the COG.
these are all the COG things that we
So
do.
I have a question. So we pay $3,200 to be part of the group,
Mhm,
and presumably the other towns pay a similar amount.
mhm.
And they're getting all these deals, but their only income is this $3,200.
Well, there are fee for service. However many programs you put yourself in, there's an additional charge.
Kind of like cable.
Mm.
Hopefully,
No, I
it's,
said like-
hopefully it's not like that. Because I fired those people. Netflix at my house if you want to watch something else tough.
So I'm not clear. This came out of the blue.
Do you have a number as to a total number of dollars of things that we get, like all the things that you just mentioned added together?
Yes.
And if you had to source all those things on your own, what the number would be, how much it would grow?
There are two answers to that. Just on the highway program alone, just the asphalt, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of product that we're purchasing aggregate through one of the COGs or the other, right? This current year, we're through the Hampshire Council of Governments. Next year, we're gonna try with Franklin Regional Council of Governments. We think it's a better deal.
And have you or anyone gone to Franklin COG and said, look fellas, we just want to move over completely?
Linda Dunlevy, who's the executive director, and I've had a very quiet conversation to that effect, yeah. I'm not sure what it would look like.
Because it sounds like, this whole thing sort of sounds like my gallbladder. It kind of hurts to get it out, but once it's out, you feel better?
Mm-hmm.
I had that.
Yeah, see,
To me, yeah.
you know, there's this pain.
After
Oh,
2
they
weeks.
took that out. So it seems like we have the choice of either watching them self-destruct and then trying to react to it, or reacting to it before they self-destruct.
Mm-hmm.
And I would rather see us react to it before they self-destruct. Like before that gallbladder pops, we should get it out. Anyone?
No, that sounds about right, but I think that we have to look, you know, I'm looking to David to see, you know, what our other possibilities are.
'Cause
Because
the-
we're gonna have to fix it.
Because the way the warrant is written, the way it's written here, it's like, do you want to withdraw or not?
Do we wanna do it right now? Is
Yeah.
that,
But the answer is maybe we want to withdraw, but we need a plan. We don't have this is not enough words.
I agree.
Brexit.
I agree. I think that a regional service organization is important for us to have.
I think so too.
And there are two things we should think about: is how much is this saving us in terms of dollars, but how much is it saving us in terms of just effort? If I had to do all the procurement associated with asphalt,
We need another
alone,
David.
exactly. I mean, I could do it, but I wouldn't be doing as much of the other things I'm supposed to be doing. So
Can we get you
So-
some old people?
So few cogs. With,
Go down to 12.
so few cogs actually surviving, then, is the state providing any resources or adding initiatives to like address those kind of concerns for regionalization?
not a whole lot. There is a bill pending in the House, sponsored by Plymouth County, that would divert some of the revenue from registering land transactions over to the COG. I don't fancy its chances, but there's not a whole lot of appetite on the part of the state to divert money away from their coffers or from the towns.
so I have a question for you.
Sure.
So if, say this passes and we withdraw, what is your plan? Or, what would be your next plan? And then say we didn't do it, what would be your plan? I'm like, what would you do on each
All right,
case?
so if this passes, then my next phone call is to FERCog.
Okay,
There is no such organization in Hampshire County. There's no such organization, a viable organization in Berkshire County. Worcester County has got more of a regional planning agency than a service delivery organization. So FERCog is the only other game that I would consider.
And are they solvent?
Yes, they're in very good shape. They've licked financial problems that we are still struggling with. Their OPEB is all covered. So they're in really good shape.
David, is it beneficial to you to have access to this group of people nearby, you know, in sort of intangible ways, non-dollar ways that,
Mhm.
you know, we all support each other kind
It's-
of ways?
Absolutely. It's one of the things that I noticed when I first came here is that I came from Deerfield, where the Franklin Regional Council of Governments would support you, grant writing, regional planning, you know, they had the time to follow the trending topics. They'd have programs of training. They had all this kind of support. All you had to do is call FERCog and they would help you out. When I came down here, Hampshire Council of Governments are good, but they're no FERCog. And that was one of the things that I noticed, is that you have to do a lot more for yourself than up in Franklin County. The other thing is that the economic and development incentives that FERCog participates in, there's nothing like that down here. There's local option tax breaks that I can't even get into that game down here because nobody on a regional basis is carrying that ball.
So it sounds like to me that we should, well, first of all, it sounds like we need to amend this text a little bit, but that we should bail out of this and find a plan B pretty quick.
Mhm.
It sounds to me like you like FERCog.
Yeah.
Like so are they a higher fee, or maybe is it difficult because we're not part of Franklin County to even be part of that?
We can be part of that. It would be a higher fee.
Okay.
Do you know how much higher?
I don't. But I'm thinking about Deerfield when we were there. I think we were paying something on the order of $10,000 a year for a comparable sized town, just to be part of.
So have you had discussions with Amherst and Northampton who have not participated in the HCOG, but still have to go through procurement, professional resources, and whatnot, not for a handout or something like that, but for kind of piggybacking or working in conjunction to see how they've done things, and maybe some kind of not at a county level, but some kind of regionalization efforts with them? Because presumably they've been doing okay without the HCOG. Obviously they're a little larger and
Right.
more self-sufficient, but I mean, they are next door neighbors, rather
Right.
than going to kind of Franklin County.
So we do get some regional services out of Amherst, principally the ambulance.
Right.
And we get from the City of Northampton Veteran Services and what's the other one? The Sealer of Weights and Measures.
That's right.
We do that. So there are opportunities for additional collaboration, that's for sure.
How about IT?
Can't volunteer
Great
myself, but
idea.
there has been talk of that
Yeah.
historically about regionalizing some infrastructure.
So you asked also what happens if this doesn't pass.
Right.
Okay, so I think that HCOG needs to be rescued. If not necessarily for Hadley's sake, but for the Worthingtons and the Cummingtons and the small towns out there. There's no reason why HCOG couldn't function well, maybe not in the place that they are in, but some place where you can have a storefront and they can all coordinate services that people need.
Where are they physically located?
They're physically located in the Northampton courthouse.
Right in
Northampton.
Northampton?
Yep.
I don't know which
Yeah.
way we're pointing here.
Yeah.
And so they have like a little room unlike this, just like this room somewhere in a corner?
They have a floor, but you have to go through security to get there some days. Some days they'll let you in through the side entrance. But you gotta be pat down and frisked and everything like that.
So do these
It's not
councils of
very
government,
inviting.
do these councils of government always operate in a very vendor-client type operation, or is there a possibility for like a shared ownership, as it were, between the various hill towns and smaller communities when trying to think of the successor?
Yeah,
for
we would have to go back to the enabling legislation to find out if there's any issues there. I suspect that they are confined to the geographical area of the former county,
Sure.
but that shouldn't be an insurmountable fix.
Well, but who's gonna do this fixing? Because it sounds like the people who are running it now are not very successful at fixing it.
Right.
Well, couldn't they be taken over by the FERCog? Maybe they could, I know when the banks get small, start having troubles, usually someone buys them out.
Mm-hmm.
I would think if they're having issues, someone bigger will take over, and so the Franklin County would get, if they're strong enough,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's
take
been
over.
thought put into that, but one of the problems I keep hearing is that the financial statements just aren't coming out. So
Okay.
nobody, Franklin County included, would be able to know their financial position. Whether you want to buy something out, if you have
Sure.
a lot of debt or.
I mean,
Okay.
the fellow who normally sits over there, Michael Sarzinski,
Sarzinski.
seems to be under the impression that, he's expecting him to be gone any minute.
He
That's
was
a-
our representative until, yeah.
I have looked at their financial statements. They are not pretty. When your management letter talks about insolvency, that gets your attention. This is a problem for them that they need to overcome, and it doesn't seem like that they are getting their financial act together.
Have we gotten accrual-based statements yet? I remember that was a big point of contention.
I have to check with Molly. She's gotten a lot of that. I think accrual-based statements, yes. I'll ask her to share that with you.
So if this was something that we voted on and say we voted yes, is it really gonna put a big hardship on you? Is this gonna be really a
Well,
bad thing?
what we have right now is conceptual language. I'm not even
Okay.
sure that this language is what we need in order to withdraw from the COG.
Okay,
I was talking to Todd Ford this morning about it. You know, I did the stand-up thing. I gave him a copy of this. Said, "What do you think?" And he told me what he thought.
What did he say?
Well, you know, you know, how, you know, blast and darn and all that kind of stuff. He was saying that the charter doesn't allow you to just pull out this quickly. You have to give more notice. So I said, fair enough. Send me a copy of the charter. I'll take a look at it. So.
okay.
All right, so let me ask a more functional question. So this Article 11 is going to come up in town meeting, and people are going to vote on it.
Mm-hmm.
I would be willing to bet, since I didn't know what it was, that the vast majority of the people in the room aren't going to know what it is. So how are they even going to be able to make a decision, yes or no, when they have no idea of all the things like we just talked about?
Well, my understanding was that the select board was kind of putting this in here as a placeholder, as the term that kept being used, to have more of a discussion on it, and that more, I think it was Jerry who sits on the HCOG board, or he's the liaison to. Don.
This end, yeah.
Is going to have a lot more information in the coming weeks, so we'll be able to have a more productive conversation about it, but not necessarily that it's just kind of going like this and we're going to vote on it yes or no, but they just want to get it on the warrant for now. But the select board's really intensely looking at this too.
So we're going to not do anything with this because I don't think we have enough information. Certainly, these 5 lines of text aren't covering it.
This 5 lines of text is what I copied out of the vote from 2002 when we pulled out of the COG. Originally, we joined in 2010. So, and I think it was money at that time. I think it costs, I'm going to make up numbers, but something on the order of $20,000 a year to be part of the COG. And people didn't want to spend that kind of money, and then 2010 they came back and said, we have a special deal for you for $8,000. Can you rejoin? And that $8,000 has been whittled down to $3,200 over the intervening years.
I would say that may explain why there's a problem.
Yeah.
You know, everybody loves a tax cut, but boy, things get screwed up.
Mhm.
So that said, can the finance committee be kept in the loop with anything that's going to Molly essentially in terms of financial statements or what else would be applicable?
Okay.
So if something is like this is a placeholder, and I mean, how many more times is the select board going to meet before town?
One more. Well, I mean, they're meeting on the 12th in order to sign the warrant. Then there's a possibility of as many as 3 more meetings. I
But if
don't
they-
think they're going to do all of that, but there's a possibility.
But if they sign the warrant, then this is going to go to town meeting the way it is.
Yep. They could pass over it. They can amend it on the floor.
I think we should take it completely out of the warrant
Mm-hmm.
until we get our act together.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, to me, it sounds like the COG is a disaster, and we need to have a plan B.
Mm-hmm.
And this text should say, do we want to withdraw from the COG? And if we withdraw, we're going to do X, Y, Z. This is what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And if we stay in, we run the risk of bad things happening to us.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think that you're saying that this isn't giving us enough time anyways, so it will be into the fall that we would have to give at least, so why couldn't we have it on fall town meeting, I would think, to do it. So, I mean, it's not like we, because it makes it sound like we can't do it this summer.
Well, presumably you want to make arrangements for the Plan B operating on the fiscal year.
Oh, that's
I
true.
assume that's the idea,
Yeah.
for July 1st.
Right. That makes sense.
I just want to see us get, you get this phone call and it says the COG is no longer here. Go get your asphalt somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're running around like a crazy man trying to fill potholes because you don't have asphalt.
Right.
That's what I'm worried about.
I was thinking that since it's kind of a concept that people may not really know much about, sometimes it's good to have it on there once, and then it's more familiar the next time, or something like that. Does that make any sense in this context?
Mm-hmm.
Well, can it be, instead of vote to withdraw, could it be, we need to have this discussion at town meetings?
Yeah, you can have a non-binding resolution to have to call for a complete report and investigation.
But you don't like to
Don't establish a committee to study.
It's a cog.
Yeah, so you can do that.
So do we have any basic numbers of the Plan B of your contingency plan, assuming the HCOG disappeared next week, on, all those same services, what they would cost comparatively, what pulling out would mean? Because I think that's something the Finance Committee could work with to see if,
Right.
Right, 'cause we
Even-
don't have enough information here.
because it may even be cost comparable to pull out, even if they weren't going under.
Mm-hmm.
So I think once we have those numbers, that'd be more productive to look
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, this came out of the blue on Wednesday, so just yesterday, so I don't have any of the background. That I think you're absolutely right. You're asking questions about what's the import of this, and I'm not in a position to tell you.
Also, Belchertown seemed to be looking to do the same thing, my understanding, right? And when he was here at that one time, and he seemed to say that there was other suppliers that you could get a better deal on than at the COG.
Right.
So
Yeah.
maybe he would be a good resource.
Yeah,
to see where-
he's been saying that for years, and
Oh, and he
nobody
hasn't gotten it.
nobody has paid any attention to it. So
Okay.
You can make your own cog.
I could.
The David cog, the D cog,
In all your free time.
and all your
In
free
my-
time.
In all my free time.
From like 9 o'clock tonight until you have to report back here in the morning.
Okay.
All right, so we're just gonna let this one, we're gonna let this go and make it the select board's problem.
All right. So the solar agreements.
We did that one.
did those.
Yep,
Recreational marijuana local option tax.
oh, that one.
Do we have an update on that from the state?
No.
Do we know if we're planning to hear anything before?
Yeah,
town meeting?
so what I can tell you, if we turn over to page 2019. Page 19 and 20 is a calendar of events that tells you what the state is expected to do and when. And I'm using this information in order to ask for a moratorium on the sales of recreational marijuana. Because the state is not going to even issue guidelines on this until well after town meeting.
But the way this is written is to see the town will vote to adopt provisions of MGL Chapter 64N, Section 3 is amended by blah, 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 or any other enabling authority to impose a local sales tax on the sale or transfer of marijuana products at the rate of 2%.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing that's badly done about this is this number, right? Because that's what you're worried about changing, right? That the
Right.
state may say it could be 3% or 1%.
Right.
So would it be better to reword this so that, yes, we want to charge tax for this, but at whatever the state deems, whatever the state law deems to be the value.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say just do it and have it on the books and be ready to go.
How about if I amend this right now? This is under legal review right now.
Anyway.
Right now, the article and the motions associated with that. So, but why don't if I add in here at a rate of 2% of the total sales price, or at any higher rate
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Or just no less than 2%.
as authorized by law.
Yeah, then you're covered.
All right.
Because this way, this way, as soon as somebody, opens up their little shop,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we say, well,
Start
Yeah.
charging from day one.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
Scuttle, where's the Scuttle?
And I mean, if you look at the business models for these places, the profits are astronomical. So this could be a real moneymaker for the town.
I mean, I'm surprised it's 2%. Like, why isn't it 10?
That's the language that was in the ballot question. So the people who put this together that want this came up with a number of 2%. That's their number.
Because if you went to any drug cartel and told the guy 2%, two guys would come and take you away. 2% seems very stingy to me.
Just to put it into comparison, we get 0.75% on the meals. So, and that brings in over $300,000 a year. So,
What do liquor stores pay us, the town?
they don't pay us anything on a bottle of booze. They pay us if you order a meal with it.
Oh, I see. So the town doesn't get any tax on a bottle of liquor that's sold
Mhm.
at a liquor store?
Other than the normal tax on profits.
Is that the normal sales tax, right?
We don't get the sales tax, that goes to the state.
Oh, right.
We would get whatever property tax we would get based upon the value of total sales or however they calculate these things.
But we don't have any tax on their stock.
No.
Then this is a good deal.
So this is a good deal.
This is a good deal.
I'm sure there's discussion at the state level, but do we know how we would handle essentially collecting that tax revenue and then potentially investing it kind of on a national level, or however we handle the accounts, since it's still federally a crime? And so obviously the businesses are going through the cash only
Yes.
problem. I assume the town would run into a similar problem if we collect that,
Mhm.
essentially that tax revenue, and then
Somebody needs to stop by
You
there
have
with
to
a
pay
duffel
the
bag.
town in
put it in a
cash.
federally insured bank, right? I mean,
We open the vault.
Yeah,
Well, the
olden
town
days,
can,
just stack the money up in the.
it's a
the
very,
town can deposit it though, right?
well, the way it would work would be the same way as we get the meals tax. So the Department of Revenue collects the meals tax from each
The state
restaurant.
Department of Revenue.
State Department of Revenue. They collect the tax and then they divvy that out to each town as
To where the
So we
restaurant
wouldn't be
was.
receiving it
Exactly.
directly, this would be.
Oh, so it would come as
Our
a,
portion would come
gotcha.
some
from-
electronic
That was my
transfer from the
concern.
state.
Right.
State's
So
problem.
the state's laundering it for us.
You would be receiving the illegal money.
Yeah, and it's
See,
just
that's
gonna
very
get wired right into
disappointing.
our account.
I really wanted to volunteer for the job to go by there with a couple of duffel bags.
So you're a senior.
Oh, wait, now I can do it as a senior job, yeah.
Yeah, nice car. Shame if something would happen to it.
So, with the new language that you just put in there,
Mhm.
I would make a motion to pass this.
Second,
Okay, second.
all there, everyone in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstaining?
Abstain? No? Gabriel?
I'll vote in favor. Yeah, aye.
All right.
Aye.
So we had to work on it for that one. What's next?
16.
So 16, 17, 18, 19, these are CPA articles. Sometimes the Finance Committee decides not to make a recommendation. Sometimes you do. They are money articles. They come out of the Community Preservation Act funds. So this is, there are two strands of money that go into this fund. The first strand is you get a 3% surcharge on your real estate above the first $100,000 on your house. So that's first strand, and then there's matching money from the state that comes from a portion of these proceeds from transactions that result in registry of deed filing charges. So whenever there's a registry of deed filing charge, part of that goes to the state, and the state gives that out to all the CPA communities. So this is taxpayer money mostly. We get about $300,000 a year, combined money from state and local sources for this. The first article is a required article. We do this every year. It's usually on the consent agenda. And it sets aside the minimum requirements for the three major purposes for the CPA account: the open space preservation, historic preservation, which can be buildings, and housing, affordable housing. The amounts shown here, 30,000 for each of those, exceeds the state minimum, and this is simply a transfer, internal transfer within the CPA account in order to meet the state requirements that certain amounts of money have to be dedicated to these three
Get
purposes.
earmark.
The
And then,
num-
so, well, let me ask a question. So open space preservation, for example, who's spending money on, I mean, if there's an open space, there's an
The
open
field, the
space.
schools or the parks.
But I mean, why does it cost money to, I mean, it's there. What's costing $30,000?
Is that with APR?
So we'll get into that in greater detail with the upcoming articles, but every now and then a farmer decides to put their land in agricultural protection restriction, which is that they're selling the development rights for parcels of land so that these parcels would never be developed in the future, but they would continue to remain in agriculture. So the value of the land is, how much is it worth as agricultural land, plus how much would it be worth if you put houses or buildings of some type on top of that land. They're selling that top part of the layer cake, the right to develop their land. They still own the land, they can farm it, they can't let it go fallow, but they can't build houses on it or subdivisions. So the state program kicks in a bunch of money for that, and they pay 90% of the value of the development rights. Local towns are expected to contribute 10% as a
And that's
match.
what this money is
And
for?
that's what that money is for.
Okay, so if a farmer decides he's gonna sell off those rights, the town has to pay for that or vote not to do it.
Or vote not to do it.
I see.
So town meeting has to approve whether we're gonna go into the APR on a particular parcel.
The town vote doesn't happen until the state's already approved
Right.
their
but I mean,
share. So
we're-
it's, by the time it comes to the town, it's already at that point where the state's come up with a price and the state's committed to pay a price,
Yeah.
and then they say, and this is what the town would owe, and then the town votes.
I see. Okay, and this fund is there to pay those bills as they come up, so that when you decide, you don't get caught with your pants down,
Right,
Mhm, mhm.
sort of.
sort of, if it's enough money.
There's plenty of money.
Yeah, because there's I mean, just because there's 30 in that, there's 2 million in the whole pot.
Yeah.
30
Oh,
at
okay.
this contribution,
Mm.
and it's 30 last year and 30, so
Yeah.
this is
Okay.
that addition.
So what's
portion of it.
the value
I don't know
now?
how much is in this open, these sub balances. In the entire CPA, what is about a couple,
Yeah, it's like $1.8 million is the total
Balance.
balance, and then we can get you
yeah, it might
the
be more like
allocations.
1.9 now, but.
So
yeah.
basically, this is housekeeping.
Yes. The second part of this article is to cover their administrative charges, and that's the 15,000. So what does it take to run your CPA department? And they pay for legal fees, they pay for postage, they pay for consumable supplies, that kind of thing. That 15,000 started out as 5,000 last year, went to 10. This year they're asking for 15 because they want to conduct a required audit, not an audit, they wanted to put together a required state mandated spending plan, so.
So it does sound like this, to me, is a housekeeping kind
It
of thing.
is,
So-
it is.
I'll move to recommend it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I think that this, plan is a good thing, that they're gonna be doing this, because it's gonna really focus them on spending this money.
Mhm.
Now it sits,
Mhm.
it just sits there, but now they're gonna come up with a plan and come up with some real needs and actually start
Amen.
spending.
Amen.
So I think it's a really good thing.
I'll send my son over there, he's really good at spending.
All right, next article, going back to the HCOG. Their building needs a lot of work. They're going out to all the communities that have CPA in Hampshire County, and they're asking for a contribution from CPA funds in order to fix up the Northampton courthouse. All right, they originally asked for $44,000. CPA committee said, we'll give you 10.
Now, just because I'm part of the CPA, let me tell you, as far as the vote goes, a lot of it, they want, just because it's, they recommended it, they're saying they recommended it to let it go, because if they voted it down, it wouldn't even be on here, on the warrant, go to the committee. So they recommended it to go to the town. Many of the, two of them didn't even want to put it on the warrant. Everybody else said, okay, well, let's put it on the warrant, but don't think we're gonna vote for it, because a lot of people feel that this is that this is Hadley money. They would like to keep it in Hadley, not necessarily send it to Northampton, even if it is to fix the courthouse. Now, the courthouse is saying it's the county courthouse, so it belongs to everyone.
Well, can I ask a question? So, is it the whole courthouse or just the
No.
cog part?
Just the cog part, the part that fronts Main Street, the big, basically it's the sister of what's across the street here.
Okay, so a couple articles ago, we're not even sure if we want to be in the cog, and then on 17 here, we're talking about throwing good money in after bad.
Well, this is actually to fix the actual building. It's gonna be under the historic part. That's how they can go to the CPA, is because it's an historic building. So it's to fix part of the courthouse, which was where the cog is. But it's to do repairs on the building. But I'm just saying.
Well, but it's all right. Let me ask a different question. Who normally takes care of courthouses?
State.
State.
All right, so the courthouse, all right, so the courthouse up in Franklin County just got this huge influx of state money, and they've tarted it all up, and they made it all glassy and shiny, and justice will be meted out there. They haven't solved their parking problem, but okay, whatever. Franklin Regional Council of Governments used to occupy a part of that courthouse. They decided, we're out of here. We're just going to go to new digs. So they're in the John Oliver Transportation Center on Olive Street. And that works out better for you because you can actually go there without having to go through security.
Why were these things put in courthouses in the first place?
Well, it's a vestige of the old court system.
It's a county courthouse.
The county.
That's what
County
we county
government.
seat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So who owns the courthouse again?
Right.
Technically.
This is over in Northampton.
Yeah, the one in question.
If you talk to HCOG, they say that all the cities and towns of Hampshire County owns it. It's jointly owned. I don't know that for a fact.
A lot of the people in the county aren't even part of CPA, so they're not putting in any money. They're not
So-
even.
Yeah, so the place I would go would be the enabling legislation that created HCOG in the first place, because that'll talk about the assets as well. That's where the information's going to be.
Well, presumably, no matter what happens with HCOG, all the communities will keep using the courthouse. I think it only makes sense to keep, investing in it. In my opinion, at least.
Well, but let's say the cog disappeared, like they went bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
Northampton courthouse isn't going to disappear. They still need a
No.
courthouse. So who would then take over the responsibility of keeping that building up?
I would imagine the state would take it by eminent domain.
This is just a little drop in the hat. This is nothing. What they need is a lot of money. So this
Sorry.
is really
Didn't know.
nothing.
That's
But I
fair.
think when we go to town meeting, the big discussion here on CPA funds is, do you believe that CPA money should stay in Hadley? Or do you think it's okay to
See,
spread it
there's mixed stuff going on here, and that's what's
Yeah.
troubling me.
Yeah, but I when you go to the town meeting, I think you're gonna hear that pretty strongly. That I kept hearing and over and over again, even from members of the select board. This is not when they say when we sold this to the town, we sold it to the town stating that we're gonna do things for Hadley. So when another town comes with their hands open saying, can we, have, do part of your CPA money, so I think there's gonna be it's gonna be tough to pass this. I see a
So,
lot of opposition.
I still don't, well, yeah, and I can understand why, because,
Mm-hmm.
you're saying, oh, we're gonna give $10,000 to Northampton, and whether it's $10,000, $1, or $1 million, nobody's gonna like that idea. I don't like that idea.
Except that people who live in Hadley use that courthouse now.
Well, that's why I'm trying to find out who normally takes care of courthouses in the absence of a COG.
It would be
They're-
the state.
They're state courthouses. The other question would be if we vote yes for 10,000, or if we voted yes for the 40,000 and they needed a lot more money than that, and they didn't get a lot more money than that, would we still?
Yeah, do we
what
get our
would
10
become-
grand back, or do
Yeah.
we just,
Right.
ends up part of the bad financial
What would
structure of the
happen to
COG?
that? What are the conditions of providing the money, even if the town voted yes?
Mhm. The other thing is, because like I said, a lot of these towns are not part of CPA. If they were to do this courthouse, and they went to, in this courthouse, took care of all these communities, and they said, your fair share is this, your fair share is this, your fair share is this, then it's different. But why should just us pitch in, and not some of the
Yeah,
others?
so I think the example would be South Hadley, which is a larger town. They don't have CPA.
Mhm.
I don't believe HCOG has reached out to them for money for their courthouse.
When we asked HCOG, they said that they were, going to try to figure out something, but they did not sound
Well,
like
this
they
is-
had reached out to anybody that wasn't CPA at that time.
This
Right.
is conditioned on them receiving money from the state. Is that something that CPA, your board added in, or is
Yeah.
that?
Yep.
Oh, okay, all right.
Mhm.
I'm inclined to decline this.
I,
Not
I
recommended.
am one of the 6 people that voted to let it go, just to put it in here for discussion, to put it on the warrant, but I'm going to be voting against it. I didn't even, we didn't even want to let it even be here for more than the 10, because I think that we all felt like this money needs to go for Hadley, and I'm all for the
Right.
plan.
That was a good compromise, actually. It was-
The plan, well, they said, oh,
Yeah.
well, they said Hatfield wouldn't come up with all the money, they only would put it on their warrant for 10. Why should we do more than Hatfield?
So is there a motion?
Anybody want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion to decline this one.
Second? I second.
And others?
All
In favor of declining?
all in favor of declining?
A
I
yes,
have a nay, I'm
Oh.
a nay.
a
Okay,
yes vote means no, and a no vote means yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
the way we just
Uh-oh.
worded it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So you mean,
So I think that we should contribute to the,
okay, so you
Yeah.
mean,
Okay.
okay.
all right, so that's 2-1.
I'd like some more discussion on it. Because I do have some reservations. I don't know what the vote called, do we?
The vote doesn't pass.
Or,
Yeah, if you abstain.
You need 3 people or for any vote.
I would
to
abstain,
happen.
yeah.
Okay.
Wait, so it's
It's-
2 yes, 1 no. Right now, the vote is,
Oh.
the motion will
That's right. No,
pass. So you can't abstain and. if
But,
you abstain-
but actually, David, the way this is always listed is just numbers anyways. It
I would-
can go in as 0, 1, 2.
I would say that they recommend against. I would make it clear to the voters. If you want more time, you can ask them to withdraw the motion.
Yeah, or we can withdraw the motion and talk about it more if you have a question.
Well, it's just that we're running out of time. It's like,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, even just a brief another 2 or 3
No.
minutes. Just had a couple questions about it further.
okay, well, go ahead.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So at least thinking of the CPA money, right? I'm thinking it's for the obviously the historical preservation for like the look and feel and the structure of our buildings.
Mhm.
So the question is, do we consider this courthouse like an extension of our community because we're sending our residents there? Not fortunately for them, but we're sending a lot of our residents there, on a regular basis. And if we consider this an extension of our community, should we be putting in funding for the historical preservation of it? Presumably, if it all turns over to the state wants to overhaul, it needs renovations, it can be this gaudy looking, very, bland, whatever building it is, which is a detriment to Northampton, obviously. But again, if we consider this an extension of our community, then I think there's a case to be made for the money staying within Hadley, as it were. As ridiculous as it sounds, if it was like our police department just happened to be in Amherst or Northampton, just over the line for whatever reason, it would still be primarily servicing our community, and we would consider it part of our community,
Right.
even though geographically
It's not.
next
yeah,
door.
I understand that argument, but then I think of the North Hadley Hall, and why didn't we fix that up? Why are we giving money to Northampton when we have our own problems?
But that said, I don't see a scarcity problem, right? I mean, if we have the 1.8 million sitting in there and we have yet to allocate it,
Well, you're gonna be. I mean, that's the whole purpose of the plan that they're gonna be doing. That the plan is a big deal. Now, the other big deal is 500,000. The school is looking to do their fields, and we're just waiting for them to come back. They've already come up to the CPA once, and they, I think, gave them in the last meeting 15,000 for a plan, and we voted for that. Also, Saturka Park, they came and asked for 225,000 for Saturka Park. They just withdrew. That's why they're not on here right now, because they're going after seeing the planning board. They needed to restructure, so they're going to restructure, but they're going to come back to fix Saturka Park. I know that. I think it would be great to focus on town hall or some of these buildings. We got some
Sure.
big buildings happening, yes, right next door. So I know it's not a lot, and that's why we made sure it wasn't gonna be a lot. But you're gonna see this, and the next you're gonna see another little bit. You're gonna keep, and my feeling was once you start to do that, you're gonna see a lot more hands out looking for.
Yeah, I guess a bit of my apprehension comes from my hometown, which was this county courthouse sat in it, and it was this state-funded, very gaudy-looking, right in the middle of our quaint little downtown area.
Right.
Which would be a shame if I saw it in Northampton. So at the very least, I'd like to get this to the voters and get their opinion on how they feel about that courthouse as a part of our community.
Well, but
Right.
if
Well,
we
that's
vote
why
to
we-
decline, it still goes to the voters. It'll just say that the finance committee declined it.
That's why we voted for it to go to meeting. Like I said, I was one of the 6 people here
Right,
that
so-
voted to bring it to the town, but I am going to be one of the people that votes against it.
Right. So that was my other question then
in
is
my field.
how the numbers read. Is there any way to have more explanation on there in terms of how we're voting to express that? If you just looked at this, if the voter got this before town meeting, they're like, oh, okay, CPA wants this to happen. 6-2. It doesn't describe what actually took place.
So the answer is that you can write your recommendation in any way that you wish, and I've seen in Hadley lengthy recommendations coming out of Finance Committee that spells out all the nuances of what you're trying to convey to the voters. So yes, it doesn't have to be a straight recommend yes or against, but Finance Committee can, I'm just making this up,
Sure.
recommends that this be forwarded for further study, or that the Finance Committee recommends half the amount, something like that.
And even if you just vote it straight up or down, you can still, as a group or individually, go up to the mic and say, we voted in favor of this because, or I individually voted against it. I'm the one who voted against it, and this is why. And your recommendations, you can say, I voted against it then, but now I'm for it. I mean, you really,
I was
that's.
against it before I was for
Yeah, I
it,
mean,
that
you
sort of thing.
I mean, that's that's what the finance committee is there to provide, that kind of advice and to take the time to chew this over ahead of time so that people in the audience can rely on
So that's why I
your
did want-
spending the time on
Right,
it.
right.
And so that's why I did want you to know where the 6.2 came from, because many of them, they felt like, oh, well, if we don't even at least put some goodwill and bring it to town, so I believe that you're gonna see those 6 people, a lot of them are going to vote against it. They came right out and told the guy from the COG, saying, just because I let this go, don't think I'm gonna vote for it.
Who was
Yeah.
there? Was it Todd?
It's like
Floyd?
voting for cloture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
It was Todd. So I believe just they allowed it to go, but I believe that there's probably only 1 or 2 maybe that will be voting.
Mhm.
Cool. Then yeah, I'm all set then. My vote would be to abstain for all the reasons I just mentioned.
All right, so it's 2 against, 1 in favor, and 1 abstain.
Okay, and you're gonna write that up so that's,
Yeah, that's, so it's clear.
so it's clear. Well, that's our first one.
Okay.
How do you feel?
Well, let's continue on that roll then.
Well,
Number 18.
yeah, because it's going to be very much a similar situation is this $500. This $500 is only for like the plan, just the study for the Smith Charities. Now Smith Charities, it does a lot for Hadley and does a lot for other people, and they give a lot of money to people in Hadley. But the thing is, they're doing a study for their building because their building is in rough shape. Well, they have, I think they said they had set aside maybe $18,000 to repair their building, which is nothing. They do not have a
I
plan.
paid 3 times that for my kitchen.
The problem is they did not prepare well. It didn't seem like there was a plan set aside. They didn't have a reserved fund set aside for these type of things when they occur. So once again, we said, well, they do a lot for a lot of people in Hadley. They give a lot of monies to people, I believe, that when they got married or when
To the brides get money.
okay, and then to the kids in
The
schools, I
husbands get
guess
nothing.
something to the
To the tradespeople, they get money, and then there's
So
scholarships.
do we have
Scholarships,
didn't we elect a representative? to
Yes,
this?
you
Yes.
do.
Okay.
That's Sheila Knesny.
And that elected official gets paid a stipend of $100.
Well, I hope she doesn't spend it all in one place.
but they're gonna this is just for the study. That's all this is, and I can say that if later down the road there's gonna be a lot. I saw the rough shape it was in from the pictures. They're gonna need a lot more than
Well, but
$18,000.
where did they get the money that they use to give away to people?
Well, that's separate. That is
That's from
They have a-
the will of
They have
Oliver
they
Smith.
have a trust
Yes.
fund balance.
Yeah, so,
Which is invested presumably and is making some money, and so that's where they keep getting the.
That's where they spend their money out to all the
Yeah.
But
communities in Hampshire County.
They have nothing in terms of fixing their building or stuff like that.
that's my understanding.
They should, did they come speak with you? I mean,
Yeah.
they should speak for themselves on that.
Yeah.
Do they have much more grant funding, or do they fundraise? I mean, or is it strictly that trust?
I think that's the main, the deal is the trust set up by a 19th century gentleman who wanted to help out the local schools, and so he went around to all the surrounding towns and said, you want to be part of this? Sunderland said no, Deerfield said yeah, Greenfield said yes. So,
And when you say yes, what were they committing to besides collecting the money? Why would you say no?
Why would you say no?
That's a
Don't
good
know.
question.
I don't know. Sunderland did, so.
Well, because
I think
presumably
it was
there's an
a-
upside and a downside to everything, and
I think there was a personal reason. I mean, we're
they
talking.
didn't like Mr. Smith or
I
something.
think that was it. Who knows what happened 100 years ago?
I don't know. Well, so you're under the impression that they're gonna do this study and they're gonna come back and say, we want $20,000 to fix this from every town that participates or whatever.
They're gonna be looking for more money, yeah, but I don't know to what extent, I mean, I would think it'd be quite a bit, I mean,
Well, so what we're asking there for here is this $500 to just
Just-
figure it out.
yeah.
Right.
I mean, I think, I would make a motion to say, okay, do the $500 and see what happens.
I think it
Is that
sets a
the amount
precedent, though, that we're invested in this, right? That it signals that we have some kind of a stake in it or feel that way, which is why we.
Well, how much money do people get in town from this?
It'd be thousands of dollars over, many, many tens of thousands of dollars over the 100 years that this has been in place.
Well, like annually,
Cumulatively, but individually,
like annually, how much
Oh.
you're talking
I
about.
have it written down downstairs.
I know, but did you have to use some zeros when you wrote that down, or did you just write a small number down?
I want to say they give out thousands of dollars every year to Hadley for scholarships for people who've done academically well. The gift to brides is couple $100. The gift for the tradespeople again is a couple $100. But it's the scholarships to the students over at Hopkins. That's where the main contribution to the community is.
And they give out I'm trying to remember graduate. I usually photograph graduation, which means I don't really pay attention to it.
Mhm.
Is it like $5,000, $10,000?
Something like that. I mean,
The thing is, it is one of those nonprofit organizations, and they should be able to, it was talked about, better manage themselves to,
Well, but okay, so they're asking for $500 to figure their life out, and then they're gonna come back and tell us, what they think and how much they really want, and that will be another article on another
mhm.
town hall meeting. So I think that's different than 17. 17 is like the next step after this one. And what bothers me about 17 is that it's, the HCOG, which is known to be falling apart, where these people seem to be doing well, and they're not asking for that much money just to figure it out. So I would be for that, to give them the $500 and just to let them then come back and say what they're gonna do.
So, Amy, you mentioned that the CPA is looking at this similarly to the
It looks like they had the
Yes.
same
In terms of-
6-2.
yes, it's the same.
Is it the same people?
Yes, it is.
the same logic. And
Yes,
kind
it is the same logic as saying it either stays in Hadley or doesn't. And
Right, but I see here the money coming back, where here I see they're gonna fix.
yeah, but we do get monies elsewhere from other people for scholarships and things like that, and you're not having to support them, and you can't just say, oh well, it's because you do get some in a scholarship doesn't mean
Well, but it's still benefits the community as a whole.
that's true.
I mean,
Yeah, here we've been taking money from them for years, for decades, and the first time they come back for $500,
yeah, see that?
Yeah.
that,
Yep.
boy, that made me feel bad, right? So I would make a motion to vote in favor of this $500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye,
I'm staying.
Opposed?
okay.
Okay.
We'll just go the other way.
All right, Article 19, and its companion is 21. All right, this is the APR program for 100.
This is an orphan.
Yes, it's an orphan.
Gotta put that to the
I
next
thought you were
page.
talking about me.
Are you an orphan too?
No, not quite.
It is not.
Um,
also a
We
draft.
take people in at my house. You can
Fortunately,
just
it's
come
a
over
draft.
there.
Thank you. I'll try to look like a waif. All right, so the West family is putting 107 acres of prime farmland into the agricultural.
We did this
protection.
one.
You did? Oh, well,
Great, move on.
Yes.
I already remember talking about the
Actually,
West family.
It doesn't
Oh.
say it, so what was that vote?
actually.
That was unanimous. We did that one.
All right, so,
Pull up the minutes.
Oh, yeah.
17.
okay, so there we are.
Did you find it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so that takes care of that. And 21 was the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Same thing, 22 is the same thing. I think you're done.
All right, so that's the warrant.
So there's only two, how many did we miss? Just the one then, that we might have to do on
The 11.
Well, what about,
Article 6?
Article 6, the big one.
The big
All right, Article
That's what
6,
we're gonna go back to.
that's what we're gonna have to talk about. All right, Article 6 is the warrant, the omnibus budget, that's what I'm trying to say.
That's that.
Oh, you got a new one. Is this-
No, it's the same one. I didn't know,
Oh,
you know,
okay.
sometimes we have other people. Did you get it by email? Did you see?
I-
May I?
Oh,
Thank
if you have a copy
I
fresh.
do, I do.
So Linda and I were talking about, next
One more?
logical, next logical steps. The select board have concluded, select board have concluded their, review of their first review of the departmental requests for the budget. They'll start making some decisions about, where their spending priorities are. It helps enormously that the schools have amended their stance.
Right, so we don't have to worry about that 300,000 anymore.
All right, so we
Oh,
don't
I
have-
missed that. What happened?
So they're accepting my recommendation.
Oh, they're going back to,
They did what
Nice.
you said they were going to do, and they were gonna dig it out of somewhere else, is what they
okay,
did.
okay.
So that helps enormously. That
Huge.
takes a lot of pressure off the budget.
That's great.
Um,
Because I really would like to see the fire department be able to do something.
mhm.
I just feel like it's their turn. They waited last year, and they only are 2% of the budget, and I just felt like they really, especially with the aging population in Hadley,
Mhm.
and they do so much more than fire now.
Right.
That they really respond to all those medical calls, and they respond to all those accidents.
Where's the school in here? Do I,
That would
It's
be under
300.
300.
220?
301, top of the second page almost.
Oh, there it is. The big one.
Southeast Miss.
Now, when I look at the fire, that's not including
Correct.
theirs.
So Linda and I
This
were,
goes back to January. The numbers that are in here are your original, it's what's in the book.
What's in the
Okay.
book?
That's
Mhm.
January. And
Yep.
then there were all the hearings, and so.
Mhm.
right.
So do we
this
have
is-
an
this is-
amended one of these?
So this is where the work, no,
No.
nothing's been amended. They had the
Nothing.
hearings, but there were no decisions made.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So
I
that's
see.
the work to be done.
I think the only decision they made was not to put 5,000 into stabilization.
Yeah.
That was it, huh?
That was it.
I think we've got that loud and clear.
No, but nobody liked that idea.
Good try though, David.
Thank you, thank you. Linda and I were talking about what would be the best use of your time and how can we both be as helpful as we can in order to help you to get to your recommendations. And that can, we don't know what you want or what you need. Do you want to meet with any of the department heads that this
Well,
budget?
can I ask a little
Sure.
question first? So when we went through all the hearings and the various peoples came and talked, they often had handouts of other numbers that weren't in your budget, and some of those
It's a miracle, isn't it?
some of those were asking for small amounts more, or even a few were asking for small amounts less.
Right.
So do those numbers get incorporated into this? And then, so I guess what I'm trying to find out is we take in so much money and then we spend so much money,
Mhm.
and there's gotta be a difference between those two numbers, and whether she's writing it in red ink or black ink could be one important thing to know.
Mhm.
So, where are we in that sort of ballpark?
Well, based upon the budget recommendation that I presented, and particularly with the news that the school's accepting my number, we have a budget that's pretty much in balance, so long as we're not adding to, and this is something that we have to talk about, adding to fire or some of these other asks that are coming down.
Okay, so which departments besides, so fire we know is asking for more,
Right.
and do you have this summarized somewhere?
Wasn't it two
No,
seventeen?
that's part of why we're here, to talk about how do you want to proceed, what makes your life easier.
Well, so I would like to see in each one of these, you have your recommendation,
Mhm.
and it would be nice to know what the people were asking for,
You want their request,
what the request is,
their updated request.
what the updated request
Okay.
is, and then we can go through and say yay or nay on each one.
Okay.
Because on page 37 is their initial request. Is that right? Yeah, column G.
Whoa,
shows-
hang on. I stuffed everything in here. 37, you say?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you know what? It's the last, it's here.
Oh, it's the last
Yeah,
page?
I repeated it. Yeah,
Hang on a second.
and I hope,
Can we put in some more money for a font increase?
I really like getting things on one page. It's a thing I have, I know. And yes, we can. I know.
Get you a bigger piece of paper or
You know,
something?
yes, we can do that. Actually, you know what would work? It'd be really nice to send it to you in
Electronic.
Excel, and you can blow it up all you want
Yeah.
to look at it. So if you have that in Excel, we can maybe
Oh, yeah.
transport it and send it to them in that way. But I think that's, so what you have here, I listed on there for you to start with, that the last column that has numbers filled in is the select board, I called it select board recommendation, but it's actually, we don't have select board recommendations yet. That at this point, those are the administrative recommendations, which is column I on your page 37. David's recommendations. So column G is the total of their requests. We don't have a column that would be their updated requests,
Right.
and that's what they're asking.
That's
Yeah.
what we're gonna have to produce.
That's what we need, right? Because we can, in
Okay.
order to make a decision, we have to know what the delta is.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
here's question like this one. Okay, town council. My understanding from listening to the meeting, they decided that they did not want to increase
Right,
that one
so that's
So-
$5,000 that now becomes available.
available.
Right.
Okay.
And did they take those kinds of votes, or those are just their expressions at a
Sort of
meeting?
expressions.
Right, so we really can't make those changes unless
Well,
they're,
I think that one's pretty safe, that nobody was.
that and scratching out the 5,000 on stabilization.
That's
Okay.
right.
So, is this something that, I either look at the paper or I look at you.
Sure, yeah.
Is that something that you can rejigger those numbers onto a new sheet so that we can look
Right.
at them and maybe like project it up on the wall from your computer and
Mm-hmm.
go through it and then say yay or nay on each one?
Or you may want to put together.
Or maybe, can we?
I mean, I have a 4K monitor that I'm happy to bring in for the afternoon, stick it there.
I would say the departments that had those kinds of changes, there weren't that many. Most of these are exactly as they are.
Right, so town clerk needs a new voting machine, that's,
Oh, it wasn't in her
No, that's
request?
something that came
Yeah,
just
yeah.
yesterday, right, the voting machine?
I knew that was in there, you'll find it in the budget under expanded services.
Oh, it was in a request line. That's what they're asking for. Right. The
So why is that not part of the capital? Why, I mean,
Well, it should be.
oh,
yeah, it can be.
okay. And I thought I had some notes in here from Marlo too, that he added things. Like, oh, okay, so he added, we took
Yeah.
out 2,600. And he said, no, it has to go back in.
Right.
I'm not, oh, that would be the
That was
registration.
2,600 that I took out of this budget.
Yeah.
He's gonna make a pothole in front of your house.
Named the pothole after me.
The David
Okay,
Nixon
so
Memorial
when they-
Pothole.
When things were put in program expansion, the way Jessica did with you, you didn't put it up in the request line.
Right.
Okay, all right.
So can we get like
Huh.
a summary sheet that says, you know, looks something like this, but with a larger font?
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, there's barely enough pixels in
Well,
here to
you know,
make a number.
One way to make more fit in here, Tom, like, well, do you want the 2015 actual, maybe we can take out 2016 voted column.
Yeah, leave the actual.
2016 actual, maybe we can make, no, we can't do 17, we can only do voted. We could take, I'm just wondering if, how far back you want, 15 and 16 actual, or I'm wondering how many columns we can take
Well,
out.
I think they're asking for what's in front
You can
of
make it
them.
go this way,
Yeah.
then you can.
Okay, but you wanna keep all
Yeah, 'cause I
that
don't want you, if
information
you,
that's there.
I don't want you to have to edit this table forever on your computer, right? Just,
Mhm.
I just want a column in here that says they want more, they want less, you
Mhm.
know? And then we can go through and then, you know, on the trivial ones, we'll probably just say okay. And on the ones that, where they're asking for a
Okay.
lot of money,
So,
then we can talk about those and say,
all right, so you don't want a revised column of the request, you actually want a separate column saying additional amount requested.
yeah.
Okay.
Or
Alright.
additional amount, or, you know, negative number too, if they want less. If,
Oh,
if
yeah.
that case has come, I
Yeah,
would like to
okay.
know that.
That hardly ever happens.
Well, no, I mean, many
We
people
can-
were level funding stuff. I was
Yeah,
like,
this
Right.
is one of the most responsible budgets I've ever seen from department heads. You know, when I was going back and looking at the larger school number, I'm saying, where can I take it out of the other places? It's not a lot of places to go.
You know, 'cause, I mean, I was astounded that the situation at the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's dangerous, as far as I'm concerned, that you have to wait for someone in Amherst to finish their coffee break before they're gonna bring the ambulance over here to come and get you.
Not quite like that.
Tom.
So, then looking ahead, assuming we get that column and you kind of have an update of everything, based on what you said, there may be very few opportunities in here for us to find in terms of cutting down on some things to be able to fund fire and whoever else.
Well, so
So-
what happens, like, so that's a good point, and
So I'm wondering what other options.
where does that
are.
money come from? If we say, okay, yeah, we wanna give the chief what he's asking for,
Mm-hmm.
where does that come from?
Right.
Does that come from an override?
Well, it could. That's one possibility. That's not the first place that I would go. I'd go back and take a look. You know, does the chief need this on July 1st? Can it be deferred until January 1st? In which case you've cut the number artificially, obviously, but you've cut the number in half. You know, are they really ready to ramp up on July 1st, or do they actually need additional time to do that? Take a look at your free cash situation. Take a look at your revenue situation. Can you make things happen? If the nut to crack is not $213,000, but something more on the order of $100,000, you may be able to get there from here.
So I think we need to see those updated numbers,
Mm-hmm.
and then, you know, sum all at the bottom so we can see where we are,
Right.
and then we can then talk about, do we wanna get the chief in here to tell us why he needs that or not?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk to you and say, where can you get it from?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have better information to know, you know, what we're gonna tell the townspeople on town meeting. Now, the problem with that is the calendar. So let's look at that for a second. All right, what is today? Today's the 6th.
So you've got about a month to go.
So, and then how long do you folks think you need to Cause you gotta dig all, I mean, there's all these little handouts that people
Yeah,
gave
we-
us with their budgets and stuff.
We can get this to you by Monday, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was just about to say, I'm finishing up March revenues tomorrow.
Okay.
So maybe I can start it on Monday, but, let's.
If it makes you feel better, I'm
well,
gone the 11th,
well-
12th.
Well, here's the thing, we can work in two parts too. You have the information,
Mm-hmm,
and I can set it up.
mm-hmm.
So I'll work on, and so your end of it would be front-loaded anyway, so let me finish up March revenues tomorrow. I wonder if you can, I don't know how much additional that the fire department or clerk or
Mhm.
various other departments requested, but somewhere, either you have it down or you'd be the best one to be in touch with them and say,
Mhm.
what's that last figure, or what are the additional
Yeah.
amounts you want? And then I can set up, something in Excel. You send me that Excel sheet and we'll work from there. And I can do that Monday.
So can we,
Does that sound all right?
can we meet on, can we make a date to meet again, finance committee with the two of you?
Yeah.
Let's see,
With those numbers in hand? Like the 19th or the 20th?
19th or the 20th.
yes, 19th or the 20th so far.
Yeah, so far
David,
that
is select board meeting on the 19th?
I'm not clear on that
I
part.
only have them through the 12th here on.
Right, the 19th is school break week.
The 20th is a Thursday, and that may work better and for them anyways, to have that much more input from select board.
All right,
Should we do the 20th?
20th,
All in favor of that?
Okay.
I won't be there.
okay.
No, I'll be away. I'll
What
be-
day works better for you?
Well, I'll be in Minnesota because starting on the 15th, I'll be in Minnesota for a lot of the time. You won't see me much for the next 3 months.
Oh. Well, I mean, all right, so on the 11th, 12th, I'm coming back on the 13th, but I don't think anybody wants to see me after I've driven back from Rochester. 5 hours.
Nice town.
So we had a conversation about digital participation. I mean, it's easy enough to set this laptop right where you're sitting.
Yeah, and you can
Have
be
your
in
face
the
right
laptop
here
if you
and-
want to
Yeah,
participate
yeah,
via
yeah.
Oh,
remote
you know, that's right.
sessions.
I read the email about that.
Yeah.
So, just so you know what my challenges are. So when I'm in Minnesota, I often, I teach on Tuesday and Thursday night, and I run the clinic on Wednesday and Friday night, and then I teach all day on Saturday. So, when I'm there, I'm pretty, unless
you're
it's
used
during
up.
the daytime, I've got a lot of free time when I'm out there. So, but we have to do our things at night. But if, I can look into kind of like setting things up, if it's a clinic night, I won't be able to do it. If it's a class night, I can maybe get them started and then I can come and participate in the meeting. That I can try and do. So that means a Tuesday or a Thursday night.
Yeah, and we're looking at Thursdays anyway.
Thursdays are
Yeah,
good.
we're looking at Thursdays because doesn't Terry
The
work?
room's open. Oh, yeah, and Terry can do it. And
Terry doesn't do Wednesday very well, I think.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, shall we pencil it in for the 20th?
This works for me.
Okay, and then we'll see if we
I
can,
used
if
to
you're
pen.
free, you can
Okay.
tell in, and we have an IT expert on the panel, so he
We'll
can
make it work.
he'll make it work.
So meanwhile, is it, we would still get this, email this out to them on?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, whenever you have it
when
ready.
you've got-
Okay,
All
7
right.
PM.
Yeah.
And
What
what
I
time
mentioned-
would the meeting be? Would it be
7
at 7
p.m.
o'clock?
7 o'clock here time. You're going to be in
Oh,
Minnesota.
no, I'll be in Minnesota, so it'll be
6 o'clock for
6
you.
o'clock. Okay, that's a little hard, because that's when class starts. But I can do it, I can see what I can do.
Um,
If you're available. I mean, we can make it easy for you, but
Yeah.
if you can't, you
So
can't.
would we be using Skype or,
Really pick your poison. I mean, FaceTime, Skype, whatever
okay.
is easiest.
what do you like to use?
Well, I use Skype, I have not used FaceTime, but I do have an Apple phone now, so I probably could do that.
Is the internet connection in this building Wi-Fi strong enough to do that?
Should be. I don't s-
Yeah.
don't
I haven't
see
had
any
issues with it.
problem.
Oh, have you done this already?
No, not that, but just I have a lot of devices all using the internet, and I'm having trouble downloading my files and doing what I need to
Yeah,
do.
but live video and audio is a
True.
horse of a different color. Of course, this is live TV, right?
Yeah, but it's going out over the cable. So depending on the.
So it'd be hard for her to get in,
Yeah, she wouldn't pick it up.
she wouldn't be able to hook into that. There's no like internet link for that, is there?
No, not at this point. We don't have a live stream. We could.
The other
Down the road.
challenge, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The other challenge for me is that I'm profoundly hearing impaired. So unless the conditions are optimal, unless I'm able to look at,
Oh, I
at
see.
people
You're-
when they're doing the talking. This is why you often see me craning my neck, because I'm trying to see the lips, so, I'm not sure if that could be set up so that we could always have it pointing at whoever's doing the talking, so I can meaningfully.
That actually speaks to FaceTime, because then whoever's phone is doing it, you just here you speak and then you hold the phone.
No,
and
if we
then
just
David
set the laptop
speaks.
up in the corner with a good view, and we can do all this ahead of time. It'll take
Yeah,
30
but she
minutes
needs to probably really see it. So like if somebody was talking into their phone like like this, and David speaks, so we go like this, and
We can try it. I think it would be really exciting if it worked.
It'd be a first for Hadley.
it'd be. I mean, we can give it a whirl and see if it works.
I wonder, like, if there was an iPad, it'd be a little more.
Yeah, might be able to do, but we might want to. You might want to try that as a dry run.
You want to do, at some point I'd be happy.
That's
I'd
what I
love
was
to
gonna
do
say.
that.
After a meeting, or we
Just
can find
like
a
you
time.
go in the other room or something, and then see if you can make it work.
Okay, do we want to do that tonight or some other
Yeah,
time?
right after this.
Okay.
I've got an iPad
Oh,
and
but
iPhone
you
right
know what?
here.
I don't have my phone. My phone is in my partner's car. We swapped cars and he's got my phone. Oh,
Well, you can use my phone.
well, okay, here we go.
Here we go.
All right,
Wow,
there
you
you go.
went
I know. We this was we had a big day today, so
boy,
I thought it was gonna be a lot later than I was.
if my wife ever had my phone, I know she would like drive to me to get it. To be like, you left your phone.
One other thing that I had suggested that we do, and I don't want to start filling in your budget at all, so I would just do this via an email for whoever is going to be, maybe if you're going to be tracking it on Excel. So to clear out for you the definites, such as, let me pick on the easy one, the retirement benefits. We already have the bill for what's due July 1. We know that figure is, 1 million, whatever it is. $1,057,117. Boom, that's
If
in.
we're gonna
So
do-
that's a definite.
If we're
so,
gonna do that electronically instead of printing them out,
Mhm.
can you just make something like make those text green or something?
Okay.
And then
All right.
then we know, okay, it's green. It is what it is. We don't we don't have to talk
Okay.
about it. We don't
All right. So we're gonna talk, debt and interest.
and things that
re-
things that need to be discussed, like people are asking for more money, like that, then those maybe can be read, and you just highlight the box and go bam and change the color.
Oh.
Yeah, you just highlight the box, right click, and it'll ask you what color you want in Excel.
Right, but yes, then you print it out and everything's all
You don't
all
print-
dark.
You don't print
You
it
really,
out.
you're all gonna sit here with a.
I have more computers.
bring
I
your-
have more computers than people at my house. It's not a problem. I can bring extra ones.
Well, you know what? How about a bit of back and forth on this? I'll get this out in email in one form, and you can we'll go back and forth.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I like sometimes, because I have trouble reading on a little phone. Some of these
We
type
can
of
find a
things.
non-color way too. Just put an
Yeah,
asterisk.
no big deal. And I
Yeah,
can always
just some-
bring my
Something
highlighter.
so you can just see what's going on
Just bring
quickly.
my
like,
Bold and
Yep.
asterisk
Yeah.
something. Doesn't
Yeah.
have
No
the
big
color.
deal.
Yeah.
And we can bring a lot of screens. It's not a problem.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that we need. I mean, we're already having a column of
Yep.
additional amounts they're asking.
I mean, he's
for,
got
so.
3 right there. You can just pass them out.
All right, we'll work on this.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of boil this down to the 20, the whatever 10 to 20 that you need to work on, and not 3 pages worth of budgets that you have to spend too much time talking
Yeah.
about. They're
And
done.
Has everyone got their finance committee email straightened out?
No.
I haven't signed mine up yet.
You don't and you don't,
Yeah,
and Jennifer
this
says
one.
you do and you do.
I do.
Okay.
Okay.
I
I'll
did
try and
send
remember to
out.
do that tonight.
I sent this out electronically to all 5 of you tonight, and I don't know, did it
Oh,
arrive?
I'll check now.
On
So,
the
uh,
12th, what time are they meeting? 6:30?
6:30 on the 12th.
Thanks.
Oh, okay, I don't have to put that
Okay.
one down because I'm not going to be here. So if anyone asks. Oh, and you wanted to know about email. Town
So-
budget worksheet. Bingo.
There you go.
So
So
one-
it's this.
One of the things that Linda and I were talking about is that what's the budget that we present to town meeting versus what's real budget that we actually have to take into account. Town meeting doesn't appropriate certain charges, they just happen automatically. So when we're looking at the numbers, we always have to keep in mind that town meeting only acts on a portion of the budget, and the total budget still has to be taken into account. So the bottom lines will look different for each worksheet.
Okay.
And just keep that in mind.
All right, we'll just make like a little note somewhere in there when you,
Yeah.
so we don't ask stupid questions like, why are these different?
No, ask any question you wish.
We'll put it at the bottom, the total not to exceed, because that, I mean, or whatever the revenues that it's up against, or available other
Yeah.
resources. Well, maybe
So
we'll come
last
up
year,
with a few things.
too, David, you came up with all these afterwards. You found some more areas in revenue that we could.
Yes.
Are you gonna do that again this year?
She said that with a big smile.
Give us more revenue, David.
I'll take a look. I'll see what I can do. I do want to
open
be
that vault.
respectful to the select board's process with respect to how they approach revenues. And I know it can be kind of crazy making if I say, hey, I found another $175,000, that I want to be respectful of how they look at revenues.
Well, we're fine. If
Okay.
you find another 175,000.
Yeah, you can bring in as much money as you want, David. I'm not going to object to that.
Okay. I have gotten into trouble for doing that though, so.
Well,
I mean, didn't we put in last year, you found some money and it had to do with the marijuana area? I don't think that ever
It
happened.
didn't,
Right?
not yet, not yet.
Yeah.
So we can add that in because this year.
Right.
Because we didn't use it last year.
That's the medical marijuana money
Right.
we didn't use, and it's not in the revenue stream right now, so, yeah. I'll take a look.
so is it in a filing cabinet in your desk over there somewhere?
It's in the joint commission.
So then I had another question.
Sure.
So there's discussion about, ongoing discussion about, potential finance director, human resources director, and then the IT department that everyone is aching for. So where is that discussed and then planned out, and what is finance committee's role in that? Because I assume part of it will be in the 5-year capital plan, obviously for IT and infrastructure and all that, but in terms of personnel changes, I assume it doesn't show up on the budget one year. I mean, it does in terms of, actually raising the money and
Right.
paying for it, but in terms of planning it,
Mm-hmm.
who's looking at that and how do we get involved?
That's something that is going to happen after town meeting. Once the town meeting right now is taking all the oxygen out of the room for anything else, but after that, they want to work on those issues of human resource director, finance director, IT, fire, what are the other things?
Will School is looking for more, and then there's some capital items.
Yeah. So, what I can tell you is that we have a technical assistance grant for the finance director, so, as a shared position with South Hadley. So, that'll happen after their town meeting. So, we'll get a report, and the easy part is gonna be how much is it gonna cost you, you divide that in half. The other difficult part of that is the functionality of what a finance director will do for you and how will that impact your operations, hopefully positively.
Do we have, this is a completely, I'm segueing out of everything now,
Yeah.
but do we have like a department or a person who scours around the internet for grants to write for? Like for the schools and for the various projects in town?
Grant writer, that would be another person, somebody who could do that.
But also could fit in well with the finance director, I mean, that's part of it,
Mhm.
making,
Yeah.
this,
The Department of
'Cause-
Revenue tries to make it easy. They have a grant finder application on their website, so I scour that from time to time. but,
Because actually writing those grants is a skill
right,
and takes time and, you know.
But to get back to what you were asking, that's very much in the purview of Finance Committee's
Cool.
responsibility, if they choose to take it on, is to, first of all, we're getting through town meeting with this budget. And as you know, Amy, from being on Finance Committee before, you need to get to a certain point, have a certain amount of, I've been through a town meeting, I've been through a budget, and then you're ready to move on to another level. And, you know, for 2 years in a row, Finance Committee hasn't gotten past that part. So we're certainly very hopeful you will all stay on and be able to take on that additional level of planning, because there's many different parts of planning, not just adding on to the expenses and looking for that revenue, but perhaps in some cases, especially as we're incorporating new buildings, are there different ways then to do some restructuring within the personnel and within the buildings and within the space that we have that will work out more efficiently. There's a lot of ways to tackle these questions, one of which is an override, but that in itself, you don't do that without a certain level of planning, because if you just look for an override to bridge the gap, you'll be doing the same thing in a few years unless you have a good plan laid out going into the future. Make sure that you've got an override that is going to address the issues, not just now, but take you on.
Right, so you're not just putting a
to
Band-Aid on
leave you in a good
something.
place, yes, that you just haven't, raised the budget exponentially and you're on a new path instead of 2.5%, you've just raised the expectations. So there's a lot of ways, with a good plan, you can do a good override that will address that and keep the town safe, not only getting through the next year or two of a budget, but seeing them through the next 5 to 10 years, seeing that we're maybe on a good path, hopefully. So that's it, yes, being forward-looking is something that has been a goal of the tri-boards, the select board, the finance committee. There's a lot of turnover, and there's a lot of political circumstances that we deal with unexpectedly. You can have a great 5-year plan and then things happen. State aid goes way up, state aid goes way down. Grants that you counted on dried up, or they shifted into a different area. So it's certainly something that has to be constantly revisited, but it has to start with a good base plan.
right, and so, I mean, there's a couple of other things that we can think about. I mean, if we had a decent HCOG that could provide some of these services on a regional basis, like what would a regional finance director or regional HR person look like? You know, if we had an HR person in here 3 days a week, that would be light years ahead of where we are. No diminishment to the work
Right.
that you and John
No.
do all the time.
Right, or whether the sharing, whether it's between towns or whether it's between the school and the town. Was HR within the town, between the school and the town, make more or less sense than an HR?
Well, who
within
takes
our
care of HR for the school? Do you do that?
The part that I was talking about last night, yes, we do that because all the paperwork comes through our town. They do an amount of it, so it's
But who,
some of each.
Who does
some
the
of each.
Who does the biweekly payroll for the school?
They prepare the basic, the information. They provide us with the information, and yes, and we do mostly.
So you're
Joan,
paying
Joan.
like 1,000 people every 2 weeks, every week.
More like 4
350.
to 500,
Yeah.
over, potentially over. It's over 400, but no, it's not 1,000. But yes, but we have an outside service, but we do, we
Well,
have a
I'm very
program with them.
like Julie's
Harper's
an,
payroll.
Julie's
What?
an accountant,
Oh, okay.
and she's a payroll accountant, so she pays 1,500 people every 2 weeks, and they're all various. Some are hourly, some are this,
Well,
some
yes.
are that, some are
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
state, that state. She
Mhm.
she has all these things. So
So
Yeah.
one, I'm sorry.
No, I know.
One of the things that sometimes happens in Hadley, and I think this is probably true of small towns in general, is that we have these great ideas. You mentioned the capital override.
That's right. Yeah.
you know,
What kind of override should we have? Yeah.
Right, so, you know, that's a proposal that's been in the budget book for 3 years running or something like that. We never get traction on this issue. partly because we're all busy, partly because of the nature of the staff structure around here. But if we had continuity on the finance committee, that would go a long way towards, keeping us focused in on, we do need to address this HR issue, because I think we've been talking about it since the days
Yeah,
that you were on the
it goes
finance
back,
committee.
yeah, this is probably the oldest.
Yeah, so that could be a real service. Part of it is that, the elections come, elections go. What's important today is no longer important tomorrow. But it's nice to have that institutional continuity.
I think they signed me up for 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
so we'll see.
Term one.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Yeah.
See if I'm holding on to the table. I mean, so far I have no plans on bailing. My children are nearly grown. I have nothing to do.
It's fun. You'll
Well, I mean, I've learned a ton. I mean, I hope I haven't asked too many stupid questions, and I
Yeah.
keep thinking that the two of you must hate when there's new people on the finance committee. Like, here comes the same dumb question again.
No,
But I've
not
learned
that
a lot.
kind.
Like, just the jargon alone. It took me forever to figure out what an HCOG was, and
Mhm.
and you have those other things, the
OPEB.
Okay.
OPEB, yeah, all this other stuff.
Cherry sheet.
Cherry
that,
sheet,
That
yeah.
isn't cherry. Oh, it used to be. It used to be
Yeah.
pink.
So I'm kind
Chapter
of
70.
chapter 70,
Yeah, with the inside baseball kind of lingo that we're using.
Well, I would like to just acknowledge, my sorrow that I'm so often not here. But when I signed up, the committee was it was kind of in crisis, right? Everyone had just left, and so I read it in the newspaper, and I just, I called up David and said, I don't know if I'd be any good at this, but I could help. But I do need you to know that I'm opening another business out of state, and so I am going to be away a lot. And so, both you and the town moderator agreed that was okay. And so, but I do experience a fair amount of guilt about not being here when I'm supposed to be here. But I
you
am.
do the best
I
you
do.
can, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not like
that
you're
only
not like
becomes a
you're,
problem when we don't have enough people. So we've had
Is
that
3 a
issue.
quorum or 4?
There's
Three.
3.
but we've had
Yeah.
enough issues that there has not been 3.
I mean,
a
and there
couple
will be
times.
times when I have to travel for work, and
Yeah.
like next week, I'm just going to be gone from
Mhm.
Tuesday. I'll get home on Thursday night, whenever.
Yeah, it should be the kind of a volunteer position that accommodates that. This
Right.
is not a,
Which is why I
So,
suggested the 20th,
yeah.
right? Because I was trying to push it
Right.
past my.
well,
'Cause I got to
that's,
go to New York City the next week, so.
that's why some of us, we've been putting in a fair amount of time to think, how do you make it easier to be on finance committee?
Mm-hmm.
Make it
You know,
all
and
digital.
to help you enough, but not
Right.
have you just say, oh yes, okay. I mean, not to be, not control it. It's very, we're kind of working together here, how to strike that balance. These are your decisions, these are your votes, these are your discussions, and we'll help you with it. But it's really important that this.
Well, yeah,
They
so that's
come
why
from you.
having the spreadsheet with all the pluses and minuses,
Yep,
Mhm.
I get it.
So then,
all that.
a relevant question: what are the open meeting laws about file sharing? So Dropbox, Google Drive, stuff like that for a committee or for you guys sharing documents with us. If there's just a folder, does that have to be open to the public in a sense, or? I'm wondering.
The dissemination of information for the purposes of preparing for an open meeting is fine. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have a discussion of any type. So if you send a document to Valerie, and Valerie says, "I can't believe this is incredible. I've never seen anything like this. I'm outraged." That's a violation of open meeting law, because you're having a discussion about the import of what it is that you've sent
But in
around.
terms of just a strict shared folder.
Just shared folder
Information.
with the
Facts.
line saying, "Do not reply,"
Mhm.
then you're fine.
Well, I'd definitely be all for saying that, because I don't think we should have paper for any of this, frankly.
Mhm.
I'd love
Right,
to have
I mean,
all this
you can
just
save
online.
a whole
and
truckload of budget just by not printing all this stuff out.
something gets
Right.
updated, you can always count on the latest version of the warrant of whatever it is being in the shared folder.
Mhm.
So I'd be happy to work with you guys on setting that up
That'd
if
be great,
the
and I'd
committee's
be-
amenable.
Yeah, that would be fine with me, because I mean, there's 3 reams of paper just sitting on the table right now.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah. Oh,
I-
half my dining room at one point was boxes and, yeah, because everything was on paper at one point.
I mean, I would prefer to have things sent out in locked spreadsheets.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we get the spreadsheets, and I mean, David did send out the electronic, but I do appreciate the paper
I do too.
in the book because I like to flip back and forth and scanning on the thing and being able to match 2 and 2. I find it easier on
Oh
the
yeah,
paper.
printing
And-
everything, it's nice and easy, but I think just having something online, so if you lose the paper,
Oh yeah, I'm all for storing it because once
I mean, that's the
storing
way of
it,
the
but
world.
I love to having the book.
Mm-hmm.
I think that having that book is great. You know,
I could just tell you that
We'll
if
work-
anybody proposed a book like that at my company, they'd be shown the door in a second.
Yeah.
Be
But
like,
it-
are you crazy?
That could be in the 5-year plan.
if I try to print this at my house, my printer will say, "Are you crazy?" In my work, they'll be like, "This is not work.
Well, we
This is
have-
not our work."
We have
So
to pitch this to all audiences, and I have people on my board that do not use computers, so
yeah.
gotta go meet them where they are. But I'm perfectly capable of learning new ways, and so I'd be happy to work with you on that.
Don't comment.
Well, I mean, don't you think
You're
it would
doing
be,
great,
like,
Dave.
we just had a monitor here, so you can just like go through and point and say
Mhm.
this and that and the other, and then you could make changes on the fly if you had to, and just hit save at the end, and you're done.
Mhm.
That just made a willy go up your spine, didn't it? I'm talking to you.
We're amenable.
cool. Well, yeah, I'd like to move forward
on
on
the board.
Okay.
I mean, if you ever visit my wife at work, the Excel sheets are all open on her
Mhm.
desktop and they're all linked. So there are other accountants making changes. The numbers are rolling on her screen as she's looking at them.
Jeez. I think
Everything is updated live.
I would just walk
But-
out the door.
The computers here are the monitors this big, and the first thing I had to do is, because what I was used to was, I had to get a monitor like this so we could have this next to this next to this, the spreadsheets next to
Oh,
bank
yeah.
statements
I have a
and all
4K
that.
monitor on my desk.
And then, yeah,
Just
it's
big. And then I have another one next to
work
it
goes quicker that way.
when you can actually see things.
Mhm.
Because I have two computers actually, with a keyboard that has a button on it. That's computer 1, computer 2, and I switch back and forth
Wow.
Mm.
because I have my work computer that only has work stuff on it. But then everything we do is online, so I'll have the big monitor on the other computer open so I can see the CRM on that one, and then
Mhm.
and then I get mad at myself if I forget to change keyboard and I start typing on the wrong computer.
And then there's your closet computers that everyone in town hall is coveting.
Oh, well, he and I have a plan.
Oh, yeah.
He's gonna re-up the operating systems, and then I'm just gonna drop them in your office, David, and
Perfect.
you can find whoever needs one, and they can have it.
Absolutely. We have it
That'll be
all.
your decision. Maybe that nice lady from the commission over there can get a nice
Yeah.
computer.
Mind you, she didn't tell you all about the stuff that I did do for her. So.
Well, I'm sure you did. But yeah, no, I think I have 2. I have to check 3 if Miranda that needs a new one. So
She's starting college?
she'll be starting college in a year from now. But
It's a good time.
so one of the bad precedents in my house is no one gets a bad computer. So the computers that I toss in the closet that are bad are i7 processors with 16 gigs of RAM. Those are the ones that get thrown in the closet.
Okay.
Head out. Is that all
Meeting
right?
adjourned.
Meeting
Meeting
adjourned.
adjourned.
Adjourned.